Shalom Aleichem. This is Janet McBride, and I want to teach you briefly about the two calendars that exist throughout the pages of the Scriptures because they represent the two visitations or the two comings that the Messiah will have with the earth. And as you're reading through the pages from Genesis to Revelation, you're going to see dates and seasons and times and festivals. Even days of the week are mentioned. And they're so difficult to understand what's happening, or at least the time frame, because they are not compatible with the global calendar that we use today, which is a solar calendar. It is the Gregorian calendar from several hundred years ago. The two calendars that I want to talk about were actually established by God, and they were established within the pages of Scripture. And so once you understand that there are two calendars, they're both operating, and how God established them and for what reason, you will better understand about the times and the seasons of which you live today. Kiva Moed, the appointed time has come. There are two first months that are mentioned in Scripture, and they have a great significance. And why are there two first months? Because there are two calendars. So this is what we're going to take a look at primarily so that you can see that when you see these idioms or these phrases, oh, I need to decide, is this going to be on the one calendar or the other? What's happening? What does this mean prophetically? So that when he returns, he won't say to you, how is it that you didn't know the day of your visitation? We are supposed to know the times and seasons. Don't believe the myth that you may have been taught by leaders who were misinformed because they didn't understand the calendars, that you are not to set dates, you are not to know exactly when. No man knows the day or the hour. These are idioms that are tied directly to festivals, to events, and to the calendars. And once you understand them, you can know perfectly, just as Paul talked about in 1 Thessalonians, the times and the seasons in which you live. So let's go to the prophet Joel, chapter 2, verse 23. Be glad, you children of Zion, and rejoice in the Lord your God, for he has given you the former rain faithfully. And he will cause the rain to come down for you, the former rain and the latter rain in the first month. Now this passage is rich with idioms, so let's just pull it apart piece by piece, because I want you to understand this. Once you grasp this concept, you're not going to be held back from understanding the times and seasons. First of all, the idiom former rain faithfully is actually understood in Jewish writings. If you get a Tanakh or some of the Jewish authors, they will tell you this is an idiom. And if you have a New King James Version of the Bible, when you look in a footnote of this passage or a commentary, it will say what this idiom means. And actually, it's an idiom for the teacher of righteousness. Now, we can understand this easily. The teacher of righteousness is Yeshua, our Messiah. Israel, because they deny that he is Messiah, will say that it is Israel itself. But nonetheless, it's been translated former rain faithfully through millennia of translations and changes going from Hebrew to Greek to Aramaic to Latin, and then several iterations of English. So obviously we've lost a lot in the translations, and we don't have an understanding. So we must put on our Hebrew glasses and try to dig a little deeper, listen to those who know the history, and discern the times in which we live. So that term former rain faithfully, whenever you see that in Scripture, just insert the teacher of righteousness or the Messiah. And God will cause the rain, the teacher, this former rain will cause, in other words, the Messiah to come down for you. Come down from where? From heaven. Excuse me. It will come down in the former rain, and it will come down in the latter rain. Now these are terms for agricultural seasons, and the Jewish festivals are centered around the agricultural seasons. The Messiah understood this because it was the language of that people. The former rains come in the spring. It prepares for the spring harvest, and it goes through the summer months into the fall, and in the fall they call it the latter rain. So the former rain, it says he will come down. So this is when Yeshua, the teacher of righteousness, came to the earth and fulfilled the spring feasts of Passover, unleavened bread, and first fruits. That was the former rain. Now, the latter rain is still in the future. When he comes again, he will come in the latter rain in the fall to fulfill the fall feasts of Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, and Tabernacles, or Sukkot. But here's the key. It says that these visitations, both in the spring and in the fall, will happen in the first month. So, our Western brain is starting to think, how can that happen? Is he coming in January twice? But let me think that January is not spring and it's not fall, it's actually winter. So this is where our confusion comes in and why we have such challenges understanding the idioms in Scripture. But I want to take this apart a little deeper and show you the calendars that you can understand this even on a deeper level. The first thing I want to explain is what I call the civil calendar or the secular calendar. This is the first calendar that was established in the Scriptures, and it was established by God at the time of creation. God called the light day, and the darkness he called night, and it was the evening and morning of the first day. And this is in Genesis 1:5. Now, when you have the evening and morning of the first day, you have a time. Time has begun. In Revelation it says there will be a point where time will be no more. But this is where time began. Prior to this it was eternity. So the clock started ticking on the evening and morning of the first day, and this is when the civil calendar, the calendar of the earth, the calendar of the agricultural seasons began. God instituted it himself, and the Jews call this the birthday of the world, and they celebrate this day every year actually at the feast of Rosh Hashanah. Rosh Hashanah is Hebrew for the head of the year, or the first of the year, and it occurs in the fall. So what we know from this is that God actually created the day and night, the light, during the fall. That was when it all came about. It was that season, and it was in the harvest of the fall. And it was the time of the latter rain. Now the civil calendar shapes up like this. From writings in the Mishnah, the Midrashim, the Talmud, and that, the Jews have actually gone in and found the names of the month. Now you will see some of these in Scripture. In Exodus it talks about the month of Aviv, and it also mentions the month of Ethanim. Ethanim means the latter rain, so that is what is called Tishri. And on the civil calendar that was instituted by God in Genesis 1, the first month on this calendar is Tishri. It is the Jewish New Year. It is the birthday of the world. It is the time of the latter rain. And there are 12 months on the civil calendar. Now this calendar is really based after a lunar calendar. And so the secular dates on our Gregorian calendar or the global calendar we use today overlap. The months, according to God, were supposed to be established at the new moon, the Rosh Chodesh. And the new moon could have, you couldn't calculate it exactly 30 days or 31 days or have the leap year, etc., because they were established by two witnesses who saw the beginning of the first new moon every month, and the two witnesses would go to the temple, and when they would tell the Sanhedrin that the month had begun. So the first month on our secular or civil calendar is Tishri, and it is in the fall. So now we have the first month of the latter rain, which was mentioned in Joel. So here now is where God instituted the second calendar, which we call the religious or the sacred calendar. God said to Moses and Aaron in the land of Egypt, saying, this month, the one you're in right now, this month shall be for you the beginning of months. It shall be for you the first month of the year. Well, we can know by reading the passage in Exodus 12 that God was speaking to Moses and Aaron on the eve of the original Passover. They were still in Egypt, but they were about ready to come out of Egypt. The Exodus was about to begin. And what we can know is that that was the month of Aviv, because later on, when God gave Torah on Mount Sinai, he said that this Passover season would be in the month of Aviv. So now God is saying that this month, Aviv or Nisan, is going to be the first month of the year instead of Tishri. But these are the times of the former rain. It is the springtime, and it is the spring festivals. It's the former rain that comes. So now God says, this month shall be your first of the year, and it will be in the spring. Now here is how the sacred calendar shapes up. So we flipped it now, 6 months actually. Nisan Aviv has become the first month according to Exodus 12:1. And Tishri, which was the first month on the civil calendar, has moved to the 7th position. And as I say, the 12 months have just flipped. And so your first 6 used to be the last 6 on the civil calendar. Now, this is where it's important, though, because if you're looking at a passage and it's post-Exodus 12:1, then the most likely reference is that it's going to be on the sacred calendar. Not always, but usually. You kind of have to take the context of the scripture as well and look at the history. So, but herein you have now the appointments that occur on this calendar. This is the religious or sacred calendar, and the first month is in the spring. The former rains, it's in the month of Nisan. So now let's put it all together. We're talking about the 2 first months in Joel 22:23. Be glad, you children of Zion, and rejoice in the Lord your God, for he has given you the teacher of righteousness, and he will cause the teacher of righteousness to come down for you in the former rain in the springtime, and in the latter rain in the fall, in the first month. So now you understand how that's possible. The first month on the sacred calendar is Nisan, and this is when he came, the first coming of the Messiah. He fulfilled the spring feast during the former rain in the first month. And when he comes again, he will come in the fall, but it will be the first month again on the civil calendar, the month of Tishri. He will come in that month and fulfill the latter rain, the fall festivals, and then you will have your completion, and time will be no more.